Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do.
Just what to do, just what to do.
If what you're feeling is really true.
Is it really true? Is it really true?
Just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geri Petito Show. Guys, everyone and anyone who knows me knows I am the author of I'm Not an Addict, I'm Just an Ass. I'd rather be a smartass than a dumbass, guys, because 32 years ago I was a dumbass, but through the grace of God, 32 years later, I can honestly say now I'm a smartass. And yes, the word ass is in the Bible at least 40 times, and it means donkey, and that's what I was. Guys, I'm saying all that to say this. We've all had the roughest 3 years of our lives, right? Not just here, everywhere. And unfortunately, a lot of people didn't make it, and a lot of them through addiction, including family and friends of mine. So I want everyone out there to know that there's someone listening, okay? I am here for you. I'm a recovery coach. I'm a nutritional health coach. I'm always here. My services to you are free. Please, please reach out. And guys, if you think my book can help someone, because I sure do, you can go to Simon & Schuster's bookstore, Archway Publishing. It's Barnes & Noble's, on BAM, it's Amazon, it's everywhere. You can go to the Geri Petito website, www.geripetito.com. All my pages are there, and you can even order the book from there. And also, guys, subscribe to the Geri Petito Show YouTube channel. Lots of cool stuff is happening. So having said that, guys, you know I bring it, right? I always bring it. And I have a really, really cool guest today with me. So I want to introduce him. He's an author of Alterations to a Life Jacket, okay? A very cool book. Frank MAROTTA, say hello to everyone.
Hi, everybody. How we doing today?
Good. How you doing, Frank?
Hanging in there. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Very good. Very good.
So, you know, we're both from New York. You know, when I read your book, so I resonated with a lot of it.
Okay.
And, you know, you talk on the back of your book about a dysfunctional childhood and everything that went on in your life brought you to this point, writing this book.
Right.
So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Well, where do we begin? Book-wise or just in general?
In general. In general first.
Well, I guess we could kind of interject it with the book.
Yep.
Born in the 50s to a large Italian family in Corona, Queens. The childhood was a little rough, you know, to put it lightly. 8 people in a 2-bedroom apartment in my grandfather's house.
Okay.
And my mother raised 6 kids in that 2-bedroom apartment. So needless to say, it was a rough going in the beginning. And unfortunately, the dysfunction and the abuse that came along with that paved a not too positive future for me as a child and as a young adult growing up. And my decisions, unfortunately, weren't that favorable because I believe of all that injection of dysfunction and abuse, unfortunately.
So as you got older, you know, a lot of people go through certain things, right? And as they go older, they make choices. They're either going to let it define them, right? Or it's going to make them a better person. So you chose to make yourself a better person.
I hope to at that point, yes.
Okay.
Yes. What happened, you know, in the environment surrounding all that, it's kind of, you know, convoluted. You know, better person, yeah. Now, better situation, it's kind of questionable. So
Okay.
I was kind of, it was kind of double-edged sword there. A better person, hope to that point, but unfortunately, my surroundings and my environment and the path that I chose wasn't exactly favorable. So that's kind of like I said, double-edged sword there.
So do you want to talk a little bit about what happened? Are you open to that or no?
What happened, basically, the book is kind of pinpointing exactly,
Okay.
my path. So, if you even want to start out with the title, a lot of people ask me, how'd you come up with that title? I look at it as a double metaphor.
Okay.
Actually, the alterations to a life jacket part, the alterations part, I figured is like going through life with hopefully a security blanket, or some type of a holding on to security. And at that point, it was altered. It was altered. It was always changing. So that's where the alterations part comes from. And
Okay.
then the life jacket part comes from, I always felt that I was in waters that were a little too high for me, and I needed a life jacket.
Oh,
So that's how I intertwine those two metaphors.
okay. Did you seek counseling throughout your life?
It's funny, only recently, about maybe 2 years ago. At that point, no,
Okay.
I didn't seek any, because I thought I could do it by myself. I thought I could handle all that stuff myself. I think I did a pretty good job, going through that. But then again, I was young. I wasn't really matured enough to um, use that route, let's say. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Because people ask me, how come, all that pressure and all that stuff, you didn't turn to drugs and alcohol, you don't have any counseling. And that was the rough part. I was
Okay.
trying to stay above water and doing the best I could for my two little kids at that point. That was my whole purpose, to make sure those kids, weren't going to get affected by what was going on. And hopefully in the long run they didn't. But you know, that situation of a broken marriage and all that stuff, it does affect children, and it just lingers on for many, many years. And I'm experiencing that now with my daughter, actually. So there's some issues with her,
Okay.
about all those years, and it just came to be, and it was a little confusing for me because they never came out otherwise. So now, at this age, they kind of came out, and she told me about it, so it was a little upsetting. you know. So at that point, I see counsel. I definitely, I
Okay.
was seeking counsel at that point. Yeah, but nothing, as the book says, nothing going on through the book. No, because the book is a 20-year period from 1964 to 84. So there was no professional help. I mean, could I have used it? Probably, but the stigma was probably too strong. That you know how the Italians are. People always find out, hey, he's seeing this, he's seeing a doctor, he's seeing that. And according, for my mother's end,
Okay.
unfortunately, she had many issues, mental and psychological. And her godmother and her godchild actually approached her and says, you may want to see somebody in the medical, and she totally denied that anything
That
was
was
wrong.
impossible for them back then.
Yeah,
Impossible.
it was, the stigma was just too much. It was just, and yeah. So like I said, counseling during that time, no, but unfortunately, a couple years back, I did go to counseling. Yeah.
So
So
I want to share something. Um, Everybody goes through things in life, right?
correct.
And it's really amazing how everybody thinks they're the only ones at the time going through something because it affects you personally,
Right.
okay? And you're
Absolutely.
feeling
Yeah.
like no one can understand this, right?
Right.
Um, you know, After interviewing so many authors and so many people in mental health now and all this, the stories are similar.
Yes.
And it's amazing how we think we could be okay. Things happen to us as a child. Then as an adult, we start maybe getting help for it, right? And I'm saying
Right.
this for a reason for listeners. And
Right,
then all
right.
of a sudden, you think you're okay, and then your child, 10 years later, is starting to have issues because of whatever happened.
Correct.
You have to start almost over again trying to heal.
Yes, yes.
And that's what's heart-wrenching, because I don't believe it's 100% for any of us, you
Right.
know, right?
Absolutely, without a doubt. Yeah, sure. Absolutely, yeah.
And hurt people hurt people. So
Right,
our
yeah.
parents were also, I mean, think about their childhood, right? So once we can find out a little bit about what went on with them, because I had to with my mom,
I did too. Yeah,
and I
did
was
too.
shocked what went on. And it helps us to forgive as well.
Right, right, right. And like I said, towards the end, I had I was very fortunate to reconcile with my mother after all those years, and I just asked her. I said, why did all that happen? And it's funny because she came out and told me that she was abused by her father,
There you go.
and I heard stories, through the grapevine, how the Italians are always kind of hear the back end stories,
Yep.
and then she decided to, physically or mentally abuse her children. So
Yes.
it's a vicious cycle.
I don't think she decided to.
No.
Okay, don't use that word, Frank, because
Which one? Which word? Are you talking
decided. You said she decided to abuse,
about? Oh, okay. Okay.
because they don't decide to do that.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to share something with you. You know what? I want to read a poem first out of my book. There's a reason why.
Okay.
And then I want to share something with you, because this is going to help people listening who are going through things right now, Frank, with our conversation and talking about your book. And I think this is going to be a beautiful show that somebody needs to hear all this. This poem is called Forgiveness, and then I'm going to share something with you, okay? Forgiveness starts within yourself. Put all your trash up on a shelf. Don't forget what you have done, but clean it up one by one. Ask God to forgive you once and for all. Get off your high horse and learn how to crawl. To the people you hurt, you must make amends. Reach out to your family and all your old friends. If you truly are sorry, and this they will know, not by your words, but the actions you show. They may now forgive you, or maybe they won't. As far as using and lying, I warn you, just don't. So that's just a piece of it, and there's a reason I wanted to read that to you.
Mm.
I'm going to share something I have never shared at all on any of my shows, but I'm going to do it today. So my mom was a tough lady. My father came here from Italy at 13. They sent him on that boat to Ellis Island. Ellis Island. And he didn't know the language. And he had to meet an uncle he never met before. Imagine us sending our 13-year-old child. I mean, think about what went on and what they had to do back then, right? Okay. And he took it like a man, and he had to do it. And eventually the whole family came. My dad's family were all hardworking, amazing, from Italy. My mother's family, just the opposite, though. They were Italians, but her uncles were in the mob, and very different. So I had a piece of each.
Wow. Interesting.
Okay? And my mother, my grandfather was amazing, her father. He raised her and her sister.
Right.
And the real mom left my grandfather when she was in her 20s. She was pregnant by another man. And this is going way back. They'd be over 100. And we didn't know any of that until I'm 10 years old, and we're sitting on the stoop out in Long Island City in a summer's day. All the parents are there and watching all the kids play, right? And a car pulls up, and a man gets out with his wife and little babies, twin babies, puts them in a stroller, and they're walking down, and they're looking for Lucy, my mom. It was her brother she never knew she had.
Wow.
And he was in my life until he died, in our family's life. My aunt, she just passed away last year. She was in my life, her kids. Okay. Facebook. Facebook has a Long Island City page,
Wow.
and I was able to recognize a couple people's names, and I knew they were in my mother's family, and I reached out to them, and they let me call them. I talked to my mother's stepmother's sister, who was 101 years old and still alive,
Wow.
her daughter, who lived with her, who was 80-ish, and then I talked to another woman who told me what really happened the day my real grandmother left and what she did to these
Wow.
kids. I was able to finally forgive my mother. My mother was gone, but I cried. I'll never forget this. And I got on my knees and I was crying and I said, Mom, forgive me. I forgive you.
Wow.
I cannot tell you what that did for me. So I'm saying that for you as well, Frank, but for people listening, the person doesn't have to even be here with us alive.
Right.
You
Right.
can just tell them you forgive them, and a load will be lifted off your shoulders
Wow.
because they didn't know how to get help. They were never going to seek help. They were never going to go to a counselor. They were never going to talk about it. Everything was hush-hush. Italians, that's right, especially back
Absolutely.
then. So,
Absolutely.
so Frank, I was able to, when I tell you 1,000 pounds off my shoulders,
Wow.
so she didn't intentionally try to abuse you. She didn't make a decision to do that. They did
Right.
not know how to be any other way.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I get you.
So let's talk now about your book.
Right.
So when did you make a decision you wanted to write this?
It was the beginning of the pandemic. I had a part-time job at a local college in Long Island, and I actually got laid off on March 20th,
Okay.
2020. So I was going through my drawers and my dressers and whatnot. That didn't sound right, going through my drawers. My dresser.
I like that.
I'm sorry.
That's
But
funny.
anyway, so I found something that I wrote 20 years ago. And it was about growing up. And it was 2 chapters that I had. And it was so funny how my mother saw that 20 years ago. And I made her read it. And she looked at me and she says, "Was I that bad? Was I really that me?" So I says, "Mom, just writing about that." I said, "I'm not saying you're good or bad, but that's what happened in my eyes." So moving forward, I had nothing but time, and I wound up just writing for the next 4 months, 12 hours a day. And not only did I have 2 chapters, I wound up getting 19 total. And it just flushed out of me as I was writing. And I just said, you know what? I'm going from when I was 10 years old till I was 1964. So that was 64 to 84. So that 20-year period, I felt that it was a lot of stuff went on. And,
Okay.
and that's how that's how the book became the book, actually. So I also had a nice little connection. A neighborhood friend of mine had just written a book, and I showed him some stuff that I had written, my first draft, and he says, "This is pretty good." He goes, "Why don't you speak to my author and just give him a call and show him what you have, and maybe he could help you out." So on the back of my book, there is a quote from an actual author, Dennis Griffin. And Dennis saw my stuff, and he says, "You got something here." He said, "I will definitely look to publish this and help you get it published." So we had 2 traditional publishers that wanted the story. The first contract that I got, not that they wanted the story, they wanted the teeth in my mouth also. So, it was just they wanted everything. So I would at that point lose everything. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. They were going to give me in advance 5,000 copies, but they wanted the rights. So I said, no, I worked too hard for this, and the rights are going to remain with me. The other company from Colorado, that company was from Canada, actually. The other company was from Colorado. And they just dragged their feet, never got back to me. And then I said, you know what, let me self-publish. So I interviewed about 10 companies, and I got a great deal from this company, Palmetto in South Carolina, and that's how the book became to be. And it's going on. It's going to be 2 years already this summer. It came out, I believe, in May of 21, maybe May or June of 21, actually.
Okay.
So yeah, that's how the book came to be. So now I'm feeling good now because this Dennis Griffin, he was a very and the sad part about Dennis Griffin, this was very sad. When the book came out, I text him and I says to him, "Give me your address. I'd like to send you a copy." I never heard from him. This was 2 weeks after the book came out.
Okay.
So what had happened was I got in touch with my friend that used him. He was a ghostwriter, actually. And so when Dennis knew about the book that was going to come out, he says, "You could use my name in any review you would like." So that's how that back page got written. Anyway, the sad part of it was I found out 2 weeks after my book was published, he passed away.
Oh, wow.
Never got my book.
Oh, wow.
That was a killer. Here's a guy that, he was my mentor. He was a great guy, and he loved the book. And this is a guy that was an award-winning author. So that was like, wow. He never got to see my product. It was so very sad, and that hit me pretty hard. So that's why his name is on the back of my book. So
Beautiful.
yeah, it's just funny how life happens. You can't put a finger on it. Just from day to day, you don't know what's going to happen. So who knew that the guy that mentored me wouldn't even be able to see my book, my live book? It was sad, very sad. So yeah, that was a rough one.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. I was really fortunate with something similar to what you're talking about. We used to be able to do our shows live on Facebook where people could call in, and they could even type to you and talk to you while you're on, and we would see everything.
Right.
Years ago, I'm in studio doing a show, and a gentleman types, "Jerry, do you remember Bill Gray?" And I'm like, "What?" And I go, "Mr. Gray, my art teacher
Wow.
from grammar school,
Oh.
7th and 8th grade in Robbinsville." And he goes, "Yes, it's me." I was like, "Oh my gosh," I almost started crying. We talk to this day. He was my mentor. It was because
That's
of that
great.
man told me, "You're an incredible artist, never stop," that I ended up never stopping, and I went to art school. But
Wow.
it was because of him. And to this day, he's in my life.
He's an older man?
Yes, so he's probably 72-ish maybe.
Oh, okay, not too old.
Yeah, 75 tops, 75 maybe.
Wow, that's so nice.
Yeah, isn't that
You
nice?
should have him on the show.
Well, I actually Zoom with him every once in a while, and he doesn't want to.
Oh yeah.
Okay, it's funny.
All right, that's all right.
But
That's
yeah.
all right. That is so cool.
It is so cool.
Very nice.
So now, what do you want to happen with this book? Because I know you're doing certain things, aren't you?
Yeah. What I want to happen with the book. It hit me, and I've heard from other people that the story was so powerful that it was film worthy.
Okay.
So now, when I heard that, I had at that point I had sent it to a couple of producers just on a whim, and they got back to me and they said it's definitely film worthy. So now, wow, now the bells and whistles are going off.
Okay.
I says, wow, this is really crazy. The book was a dream, and the film would be a double dream. So I followed up with it, and what had happened was two producers suggested a short film, which would be much more, less money, less headache, whatever you want to call it, as opposed to a large scale book you're talking about,
Right.
a big project. So it was so funny, and this was another thing. Like calmer is that we both agreed on a certain chapter that should be this short film. So if you remember, it was the chapter that we almost lost my son during the 1977 blackout when he had almost 107 fever, and it was a terrible, terrible night. We almost lost him. And it was a power-packed, dramatic situation. And that would have been a great storyline for a short film. So this producer that I was talking to, he says, you have to get a screenplay done. So he says, I have a guy for you. Call him up, see what he could do for you. And I would definitely recommend you get a screenplay. So push came to shove. I called the guy, had a nice conversation. I sent him my book. He read the book, and I told him my intentions. And he zeroed in on that chapter. And 2 months later, we had a screenplay.
Okay.
So now I says, wow, what do I do now? What do I do with the screenplay? So back in October, a couple of friends of mine were going to a film festival in Lindenhurst. It was called the Long Island Film Festival, I believe. I don't know the actual verbiage.
Okay.
So anyway, they said, why don't you submit that screenplay to the film festival and just see what happens, So I says, no, I don't want to do that. And he said, no. So, send it. It was a $40 entry, which wasn't a big deal. And I sent it in, and I actually, that day, it was October 22nd of this past year, I rented a table to sell my book at that film festival. So I'm like in the deepest corner of this big auditorium in Lindenhurst, and the awards are starting to be announced, and I'm sitting down with my book, and they said, okay, the next category is in a short film. So, and he says, and the winner is The Darkest Night. So now I look to my right, I look to my left, I says, that's me. I says, I was like, I was dumbfounded, I says, wow, that's pretty cool, So I got up, left my table, went on stage, cameras going off, the whole 9 yards, and it won Best Short Screenplay.
That's so cool.
It's like, wow, it's really, it was really cool, So it took me by storm. It's like it just knocked me off my feet. I was like, wow, this is crazy, Matter of fact, it's hanging up right in my wall in my dining room here. Okay, so now what do you do? Now, where do you go from there? I had a nice situation, very, very fortunate. I was working in a college, like I said, in Long Island, and something told me to let them know about this.
Okay.
Because I was a regular guy, regular bus driver guy, driving kids around campus and to different locations, and I thought that it should be recognized that, number one, I was an author, I wrote a book, and number two, I got an active screenplay now. So I got in touch with the chairman of the communications department that does film, and they loved the idea. So I met with the professor. She asked me if I can give approval for the kids to work on the screenplay as part of the curriculum.
Okay.
I says, wow, that is really cool. So I did, and this past semester they worked on it, and they did such a great job that it's actually ready for pre-production. That's how good it is.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So with that being said, this professor has a great.
Okay.
What was that little interference there?
Yes.
He was.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right. So this professor is an actual filmmaker, and she's got a tremendous resume. So I asked her if she would be interested in working on the project with me, and she says yes, as long as my schedule is open. And I'm waiting to hear back from her, and come hell or high water, I want to do this. I want to get this done. So it's going to be really cool. It's good. Like I said, I don't, it's so funny when you get into this film world, everybody says that, it shouldn't cost you a penny to do this. So then you look at the other side of that. Now, okay, so now if X, Y, and Z wants to buy that screenplay, what's going to happen? They're going to get the rights to it.
Right.
So I'm stuck in that right thing again. You know what I mean? If I keep my rights and try to fund this thing by myself and with help, a lot of help, I would retain my rights again. So the unfortunate thing with a short film is that it's not really a profitable thing to do. What it is, it's a door opener.
Okay, right,
So now
yes.
that short film gets put onto every film. What do you call you want to talk any
Platform.
festival? Correct. You have to get it going. You have to get it out. So, like I said, it's I think it's the rest of Stallone and Chaz Palminteri. They started from nothing.
Right.
And look at the projects that they wound up. I'm not saying it's going to happen to me, but it's a dream, and I'm going to give it everything I got, and we'll see what happens. And if someone says, whose story is that? And then it comes back to me, then that investor would be interested in making a full-length film out of it. So now the question is, what else do you have? That's the question that these investors say. What else do you have? So now I have a book. So now you're talking about, 19 subsequent chapters that could be episodes to a story, or definitely a streaming type of situation, like a Netflix or a Amazon or a Hulu or whatever. And that's what I'm hoping for, somewhere down the road, but you got to start somewhere. So we're gonna try to get this done sometime this year, and it'll be a dream. It's like I said, the book was hard, and I got over it, and it was a dream. So maybe the film, I can get a nice double whammy here, So yeah. So you mentioned that a couple of good things are happening. So
That's great.
That's hopefully where we're gonna, hopefully this year we're gonna try to get it done.
So let's talk a little bit about your journey writing this book, and did it help you, and I'm assuming, I hope so, did it help you overcome some things?
Oh my God, yeah.
Okay.
Because it was cathartic. It was a cleansing. It was something that came out. Now, unfortunately, when you write a memoir,
Yep.
it's the most vulnerable piece of literature anyone could write. What happens is that, everybody says, and again, Italian family situation, don't say this about that, don't say that about this. I went through all of that. A lot of stuff I had to come out, and I had 6 siblings, one passed, I have 5. And my younger brother, I confided in him throughout this whole process. And as I was writing, I said, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? All right, but, just take out Uncle so-and-so's name. I don't think the kids are going to like that, whatever. I went through that whole stage. Now, when it was done, okay, there's 5 siblings left. Now, obviously, you're not going to have across-the-board favorite opinions on how we grew up. And that became a little difficult, unfortunately. Okay. So what happens is this. Now, I was batting 500 because 2 siblings loved it and the other 2 didn't care for it.
Okay.
So I'm fighting that, I'm fighting that, and unfortunately, a lot of people didn't know my real mother. They didn't know that. A lot of people. So a lot of them couldn't get by that first chapter, and I was fighting with that all the time too, And why is he talking about his mother like that? I mean, that's very personal. So is a memoir. You see what I'm saying? So the vulnerability for a memoir is tough. It's really tough. You can't please everybody. So my feeling is this. Listen, if you didn't know my mother's that side, I told you that side. If you didn't like that, then give the book a chance. And at the end of the book, me and my mother reconciled 30 years. So you wouldn't be able to see that if you don't finish the book. That's my selling point. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to interrupt you, which I usually don't do. I have a question. So how long did you go without speaking?
To
your mom?
In the beginning,
You said you reconciled.
well, reconciled of what happened,
Oh,
but
gotcha. Okay, okay.
no. I spoke to my mother, but like I said, we reconciled as to, why was she the way
Yes.
during the childhood. That's what
Gotcha.
I'm sorry. That's what I'm.
Okay.
So, you know, what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? That's life. I mean, memoirs are tough. You got to be, there's a lot of stuff that I took out, so when you do the memoir, you can't divulge things all the time along the way. So if you read it, like I was
Yeah.
very superficial in a lot of things.
You
Hey, this
were.
happened. I was superficial.
You were superficial. I wished it was less superficial. For me.
Okay.
For
No,
me.
no, no, no. No,
Yeah.
that's an opinion that I get a lot. I left a certain amount of things hanging, which I admit to. But then again, it would have been 350 pages if I
Right.
would have, a lot of people like the touch where I gave a cultural history of the period I was writing in.
I like that.
Yeah, a lot of people love that,
Loved it.
and it was funny because the younger crowd, when they read it, they said, I always heard about that, but now to read it was so cool because you say that as you're writing, and it gives people the purpose of reading that story and visually seeing what was going on. It was so. I got a lot of compliments for that writing style, So
Yes,
I
I
didn't
love
do it
it.
every chapter because it would have been boring.
Yeah, but I
just
loved
kind of
it.
wrote it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of people enjoyed that. So where were we? What was the question?
No. I didn't have a question. You were saying that it was very superficial at times.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
and like I said, there is some family members that I'm having problems with. That it's okay. It's okay. I can't take that to bed. I mean, listen,
Right.
it is what it is.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like I said, everybody has a personality, but just you know, like people said, like one of the supportive siblings said, hey, you know what? No matter what you said or what you did, you got to give it credit where credit is due. And you wrote a book. You know what I mean? How many people could say that? How many
That's
people
right.
could publish a book? And what I'm doing now presently too is that anybody that I give this book to or they buy it, whatever the circumstance is, I say, I need a review. Okay. And just call me, text me, write me, tell me what you got out of it and what you feel from the book. And I'm up to like 55 reviews already.
Beautiful.
And they're all written down. So that's what I'm saying. If I got two siblings that don't agree with it, I have, 55 people that liked it pretty
Yes.
much. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I mean, even like you have a brother. You have a brother,
I have a
right?
brother. He's a year and just 2 months older than me.
Right. So if you wrote a book about your childhood, would he agree to it?
So, okay, yes, he was fine with it.
Wow.
Because in here I talk a little bit about my childhood in my book.
Okay.
And what brought me to drug addiction and all that.
Okay.
So he cried when he read some of it because,
Yeah.
I want to share something else with everyone listening and you as well. When I was in the rehab, they told us we had to write letters to everyone,
Wow.
but we didn't have to give it to them.
Okay.
Okay.
I've heard that before.
And I still had those letters. I have a folder this thick from the rehab,
Wow.
32 years ago. When I wrote this book and then revised it in 2020, I pulled that folder down for the first time in all these
Wow.
years and reread. I was sobbing, and I was like, "How was this me?" You know
Wow.
what I
Wow.
mean?
Wow.
But
Wow, that's
it
great.
was so healing at the time writing the letters. I never gave it to my mom. I just had to tell her how I felt in this letter, and I didn't have to give it to her. And that was enough for me at that point.
Wow.
So writing is healing, guys. So
Oh my God.
they don't
that-
have to agree with you. This is your memoir. This is your
Thank
life. This is what you needed to do for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what we have to do, whatever it takes for us to heal.
Right, right.
Okay.
But it hurts a little. Well, I don't know. I'm not gonna say a little bit. It hurts a lot to have siblings not being on board of the accomplishment. That's what hurts me.
That's hurtful. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
you know what I
hurtful.
mean. But like I said, I can't go to bed with it. I can't. Um, and everybody says, what did your kids say? What did your present wife say? So it was kind of, you know, um, Frankie Jr. You know, he read it and he said, "Dad, I give you a lot of credit." He said, "I give you a ton of credit for writing all that stuff." Some people said, you had dirty laundry out there. Nobody wants to know your dirty laundry, but that's asinine to say something like that. You know what I mean?
Listen,
My
if you're
present, my
posting it on
present.
Facebook, that's asinine. Not if you're
Oh,
writing a memoir.
oh yeah, correct,
Right.
correct, yeah. And my wife presently was the best. She didn't say one word about it. So neither did I ask her, because she didn't say anything about it. So I said, I'm going to leave it right there. She's not a question type of person. I am. So opposites attract. Like I talk a lot. She doesn't talk that much, but I
No,
talk.
not you.
Oh, not me. Only tell them about our conversations.
Yes, this guy will call me up and say, "Oh, I just want to tell you something. I'll tell you. I just want to tell you one little story." 3 hours later,
Yeah, that's us. Yeah, but it's like I said, it's interesting now. Turning a page. Let's see. If this film, I'll probably be on the production end of it. Have a lot
as
of
you should
ideas.
be.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I wish I had some directing experience. I don't. So I'm waiting on this particular woman to get back to me, and if her schedule doesn't call for it, then Plan B. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And then we'll figure out the funds and whatever I have
Okay.
to do to get this thing going. And I think it's going to happen.
Well, we're now doing audiobooks at Hamilton Radio. So I was
Oh,
their guinea pig, so my book is almost done. But here's why this is so
wow,
amazing for me. Simon and Schuster offers it as well, but it's not your own voice.
wow,
And there was no way I was okay with someone else reading my story. It had to be
wow.
me. I'm passionate about it. You know what I mean?
Of course, of
So
course.
we're offering that service now if you're interested or any other authors out there. But it's
That's
almost
very
done, and I can't wait to put it out.
that's very, very interesting.
Yeah,
Wow, that's awesome.
it's very cool.
Yep, absolutely.
So what words of encouragement would you like to tell the listeners who might be struggling with some of the things you were and I was actually?
Well, the two things that come to mind are survival and self-discovery. I think that's the two front and back pages of this whole book. So, it was funny. Again, I shared this book I share with everybody. You know what I mean? I just, I have bookmarks. I said, hey, I wrote a book, whatever. Anyway, so one of my doctors, this was funny, great guy, podiatrist, and he says, after I read your book, he says, I have a patient that's son is very depressed,
Okay,
and I want him to read your book,
okay,
and your book is going to help him. And he
yes,
said it helped him, and I says, wow, that is so awesome, because he lost himself in the depression, and like I said, it's survival and it's self-discovery. So I always said, if I could help one person achieve those goals in those two tremendous categories, I said I think I did my job. Even if one person learns something from the book, and it's to keep on going, don't stop. Like I said, I could have threw it all away and stopped doing drugs. I could have started drinking, but I had two kids that were pushing them. That I couldn't do that to those kids. I really couldn't do that. And people said, I can't believe you were just, substance free. How the heck did you do that? How'd you sleep at night? And then it was, I always said during the rough days, it was like I envisioned it as like when you boil water on the stove,
Okay.
like in a pot, and every once in a while when you boil it, the water comes out,
Okay.
it just overflows, and that was my life. That boiling water always kept on coming off and coming out, coming out, coming out. And you know what I'm saying? And then at one point is I say, you know what, I have to change gears here. And for me to leave that situation, and unfortunately, when you leave a relationship and or a marriage, the kids suffer for that. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, you hear from the other side of the fence, hey, you left your kids. I didn't leave my kid, I left my spouse, but that'll never change. Especially when a man leaves a situation, it's always like, oh, you left your kids. No, I left you. I didn't leave my kids. You know what I mean? And in my situation, for the next 15 years after we divorced, those kids were with me every other weekend for 15 years. And I was always close to them. I was always, 10 minutes away, phone call away. I kept those kids very, very, very close. And then when I remarried, my wife actually, loved those kids as if they were her own kids. And it was such a great thing to see. It was really nice to see that. And then I wound up having 3 more at the time, and they're all very close today. It's wonderful to see.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. They're
That's
all very
beautiful.
close.
People all have opinions, but
Absolutely.
sometimes staying in a situation could be more toxic for the children.
Yeah, yes.
So you have to do what's best for you and your
Absolutely.
children.
And you can't second guess at this stage of the game. You're talking about something that happened, 40 years ago. I mean, you can't say, was it the right decision? Was
Right,
it the wrong
right.
decision? You just can't. Otherwise, you'll go nuts. You really go crazy.
That's right.
You know what I mean? But like I said, knock on wood, it's like, I got my health. I got grandkids now. I got a wonderful wife now, and it just, like I said, that's why I think that's telling that story it just had to come out.
Yep.
It just had to come off my chest. And people say, why do you think your story is different?
Okay.
Why do you? How many? And I got that from a lot of my. I still have kindergarten friends, and a lot of the people from Corona. How the close Italian neighborhoods were in Queens, and they said, don't you think, our parents abused us and we came from dysfunctional families? My answer to that is I says, well, why don't you write a book about it? They don't, they said, why is your story different? It's funny too, because how people, like when they write a book or something and in the review it says it's this and it's that, like I almost put it in, but I felt kind of weird to do this, but in the beginning of my story, it was like Mommy Dearest and West Side Story. Like Mommy Dearest meets West Side Story, because my first wife was Puerto Rican and born in the 40s, so it was like, that was big West Side Story stuff. And then, my mother was, whatever she was. So I always said that it was like Mommy Dearest meets West Side Story.
Oh my gosh.
So, you know what I'm saying, right?
Of
You get
course.
that?
Of course.
Yeah. I almost kind of put it somewhere, but I said, I don't know, that's a little too cheesy to do that.
No, it wouldn't have been cheesy. Listen, I would have laughed and said, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. I should have put it in the introduction. I really should, but that's all right. I'll tell you now. So just as good, right?
So, is there anything, I don't want you to say, I forgot to talk about this part, or I forgot to say this. Is there anything else that you'd really like to share?
No, I think we covered all the bases. Like I said, how the book was written, why it was written.
Yep.
People want to know if I'm going to do part 2.
Okay.
I think that part 2 is not as exciting as part 1, unfortunately. So I don't know if I want to.
I have an idea for you.
Okay.
Okay. So I have a friend from our town, and he's like in his mid-60s, and he's an incredible singer. Okay?
Okay.
And He wrote a song when he
Oh,
was he
no,
wrote
go
a,
ahead, go ahead.
he wrote a song when he was maybe 17, 18 to his younger self. He wrote that song then to his younger self.
Wow.
So the song is awesome. So I interviewed him and I gave him a challenge. And I said, listen, you need to now write a song to that younger self.
Wow.
And he did. And it's incredible. So
Is he a musician?
he sings, I'm sorry?
Is he a musician also?
Oh, he plays the guitar. He's amazing.
Okay.
And
all
he
right.
did, what he did was, so when he sings both of them. And
That
it's
is so
just
cool.
amazing. So here's what I want to say to you about this. I would wait to see what happens with this book. And part 2 should be the big hurrah. Look at what's happened.
Well, can I add something to that?
Sure.
All right. The word that's really pushing me throughout all of this is reinventing.
Okay.
So, hear me out now. So, at 68 years old, I was when I wrote this, 67, 68.
Well, you're talking age. How old are you?
I'm 69.
Okay, go ahead.
So, no, I'm sorry, I'm 68. I'll be 69. I even forgot how old I am. But anyway, with that being said, it was a reinventing at that stage in my life. Okay, now, if you start moving that reinventing, all right, a lot of things growing up were pushed down in my life.
That's right.
Pushed down. You know, and unfortunately, I heard you're not going to be anybody. You're not going to go anywhere. You're this, you're that. You know, make sure this, make sure that. So it was always you lived, well, again, hate to say it, an Italian thing where you got no encouragement. You know,
That's
you
right.
got no what's the word I'm looking for? No,
You never
I don't
heard
know.
I love you.
No,
No.
absolutely, never heard it growing up.
Right.
But compliments, zero.
Zero.
You know what I'm saying? So this is something that you just said about this songwriter. Okay, I am a frustrated singer, comedian, and musician. So I am presently writing
That's priceless.
a stand-up act. I just wrote my first song, and I'm taking voice lessons.
This is amazing.
So that's reinventing.
That's
So
amazing.
That's moving forward.
The producer's giving you a thumbs up, right?
Wow.
It's
that's
amazing.
Awesome. That's awesome. So and maybe you could give me your friend's number or whatever.
I would love to do that.
Because listen to my song now. Always loved Cats in the Cradle.
Okay, and a silver
Always-
spoon.
Always loved it. Okay. But you know, I wrote a song in that same vein called Catch the Connection. And it's about a father and son having a catch with a baseball. And that's the name of the song, Catch the Connection. And I need music to it. I
I'm
have the
going to
lyrics.
hook you up with Kevin. Okay, you will
I would
love him.
Absolutely love that. That would be so cool.
So I want to share something with you. We never heard I love you, but I knew they loved me. Do you know what
Correct.
I mean? Never got compliments to the point of,
No.
all right, I'm an artist and I love color. So my poor father, he owned, and to this day my brother has a company. It's a huge company. He started J.I. Painting.
Wow.
And they had all the accounts, and my brother still has them, Rockefeller Center, Columbia University in New York, all of them. Okay, that's, okay. So anyway, hardworking. So whenever I opened up another salon, or I got another place to live, or an apartment, or a house, or my condo, he had to bring his guys for
Wow.
days from New York to paint, because I had different colors and tons of colors. My one house, outside, you picture this, hot pink, turquoise, and purple, was the outside of my house. I'm an artist. This was amazing. He used to scratch his head. So he would say to me all the time, What's the matter for you? And you no like a white? Paint everything a white. It's a nicer. I no like these colors. But he didn't like the colors because it cost him triple the amount of money. He had to bring the guy, okay, all that. This was a gift God gave me, and I'm saying this because I want you to understand something. They couldn't express anything to us. They couldn't give us compliments. When my father got Alzheimer's, it was in the very beginning, and I'm in a 55 and over now. My brother brought the guys to paint, and I wanted all different yellows. I said, I need sunshine now, so it's really beautiful, and it's got different yellows inside, whatever.
Right.
When it was done, I bring my father. I made him an Italian meal. He doesn't know I'm his daughter, but it was in the beginning stages. And I feed him, and this is what he said when he walked in. This is a beautiful. I love these colors. Are you an interior decorator? So wait, I almost cried. But I brought him back 2 weeks later to test the waters. He said the same thing. So he loved my colors. He always loved them but couldn't say it. So I'm saying that to you, Frank, because deep down, your mother was proud of you. Your mother couldn't express that. She didn't even know how to. Okay?
Right.
Your mother loved you. And listen, your mom, what you're doing now, believe me, is amazing, okay? And I said the same thing. My father never got to see my book, but I know he does. I know he sees it. So we kind of grew up the same way in New York, Italian neighborhoods and all that. They didn't know how to. But you said something interesting that some of your childhood friends said they were abused too. What's different about your story? I believe everyone in the neighborhood pretty much lived the same way. But we
Correct.
couldn't talk about it as children,
No.
okay? So your book, even with your childhood friends, is going to resonate. And even if they don't say it to you, it's going to help them. Trust me
Right.
on that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Trust me on that.
Absolutely.
So,
Let me just, it's funny you said how it took my mother now in the book, you read the book, and when I became an ultrasound technician,
okay.
it was like she did say, I'm proud of you.
She did?
Well, look how long it took. It took 35 years to say that.
When-
And that's
When my father got Alzheimer's and he was diagnosed that day, and he knew me, but we knew something was wrong. I'm in the car with him, and I pulled over, and I said, I have to tell you something, Dad. You were the greatest father on this earth, and I love you for that. And he looked at me, and he said, and you are the best person I've ever known. He meant that, and he felt that, but they could never say it. So your mom saying that to you, think about what that did for you, right?
Oh my God. Man.
Okay? But that's truly how she felt her whole life, not just at that moment, believe me.
Wow, yeah.
I,
Like I said, and people, people say that, listen, she had 6 kids and she couldn't stretch that love 6 times over again. You know what I mean? It was hard to stretch that out. What happened with my mother is that as she had those kids, and like I said in the beginning, she had a lot of issues, but she mellowed out, by the time she had the twins. Because don't forget, she had 4, and then she had twins.
Okay. Wow.
And then, oh my God. So the twins, Johnny and Joey, were born in 1959, right? September 24th. And my wife now was born on the same day.
Amazing.
And the same year.
Amazing.
So my mother tells the story that when she went in, there's no ultrasound, amniocentesis back in 1959. So she's having the baby. She thought was a baby. So she delivered one, and the doctor says, oops, there's another one coming out, bro. She goes, I don't want it. Leave it here.
I love it.
I don't want it. I don't want it. She says, what am I going to do with it? You got to take it home. She started crying. I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. And those twins were 8'3" and 7'11". That's how big they were.
That's something, huh?
And she held the record from Flushing Hospital for about 30 years. She held the record.
Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah, nuts. Yeah, she was in the paper and everything. It was
Amazing.
crazy.
So, Frank, how do you want to close the show today? I'm going to be reading one poem that I read a lot with these kind of shows, but how do you want to close the show before I read
Well,
the poem?
like I say, my two goals are people that having issues of survival and trying to find themselves. Like I said, I'd love for them to read this book, and it would definitely help them along their path.
How do they get your book?
Very simple. It's on Amazon. It's probably the easiest way to go. It's also at Walmart.com. It's at Target.com.
Okay.
Barnes and Noble. You go. It's not physically there, but they'll get
Yeah.
it for you in 2 days.
Yep.
I have a website also. I like to
Yep.
tell you about. It's atalj.com, and it gives you a lot of background about my writing. My writing history.
Okay.
And certain things about how I started writing and whatnot. But yeah, like I said, people that are depressed or just lose themselves, this will help you find yourself in the way that I found myself, and that's where I like to leave it.
Beautiful. Well, I want to personally thank you. The producer has been flashing your book, and your website is actually, we got it. So he's been doing that on the screen. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I want to thank you for honoring me with this interview today and sharing your story, because it's not easy.
No, not easy at all.
But I wish you nothing but the best. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And, guys, everyone listening, this gentleman here wrote this book in his 60s. I wrote my book in my 50s, okay? You're never too old. I had an author here twice with book 1 and book 2, and I mean like 250 pages. She recently passed away. She wrote her first one at 90 years old.
Wow,
The
that's
book,
unbelievable.
it was about our heritage. It was amazing. So guys, never say never. I want to read a poem for everyone out there, because there's nothing special about me or Frank or anyone else that does these things. We all have a gift, but it's up to you to figure out what that gift is and utilize it. So I'm going to read this poem because it's important that everyone out there knows they're just as important. It's called Utilizing Gifts and Talents. We are born with talents, we are born with drive, with different gifts to help us thrive. I knew early on I was born to draw and paint, to also write poetry, and to talk without restraint. Our gifts and talents should all be used, God's gift to us not be abused. We can go far in life for sure, using our gifts to go on tour. All our talents should be used to create ourselves and more, but then our job's to share them, to even up the score. You see, in life, what's needed is not just for ourselves. Once our gifts are mastered, take them off the shelves. A living we can make by spreading them around, not just for the money, but to spread a peaceful sound. So don't take for granted the gifts you're given. Go out and spread the joy. Our gifts are not to be held back for us to self-destroy. Put your efforts forth. Do not hesitate. All your talents, my friend, are never second-rate. Never hold them back, or you will surely die. Maybe not in body, but your soul will cry. Our gifts were made to share, our talents made to soar, so go through life enlightened, and you can roar. Be proud of who you are. Be happy you're alive. Once again, my friend, your gifts will help you thrive. By putting efforts forth, not keeping them at bay, Frank, your name will live forever, forever and a day. Go through life excited for what you sure can give. To yourself and others is our reason to live. Our grave will be quite lonely, but our legacy lives on. So make sure people smile with the breaking dawn. That's for everyone out there listening, guys, okay? Frank,
Beautiful.
I want to thank you
Very nice.
again
Thank you so
for
much,
this
Geri, for having
interview.
me.
It was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, producer, take us out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do.
Just what to do, just what to do.
If what you're feeling is really true.
Is really true, is it really true?
Just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.